Hey students, it's Mrs. T. This is another geography lesson. We're in the middle of talking about the demographic transition model. We're going to talk about stage 3 and agriculture and the epidemiological transition model and that kind of thing today. This is a continuation of the most recent video where we talked about stage 1 and 2. And how the birth rate, the death rate, the natural increase rate of populations is affected over time as new technological advances come into play. And think of subsistence strategies like agriculture as a technological advantage or advancement. That's the word that I meant to say. So agriculture is a technological advancement because at its foundation, the word technology for social scientists really means knowledge about how to do things differently or in innovative ways. And so agriculture in stage 2 that we talked about in the most recent video, agriculture was really a technological advancement, even though, remember in stage 2, we are still talking about its manpower. Manpower being a word that's not a sexist word. It just means that human individuals use their own elbow grease to get work done, right? So there wasn't beast of burdens, there weren't beasts of burden, there weren't machines that helped with the agricultural production back in stage 2. And that's one of the reasons why you needed a high birth rate. The death rate went down, remember, because you had a decrease in pandemics getting people because the calories that were available to those folks were much more predictable and available in society. And so you just had healthier people in general, where our natural immune cycles could take over and help us overcome some kind of ailment that was going around. And so in stage 3, this is where we zoom forward in time to really the Industrial Revolution and industrialized agriculture to a certain extent. Well, that comes in, industrialized agriculture comes in really in stage 4. But this stage 3 of demographic transition, where you see the population pyramid, even though it's shaped kind of like this ellipse down here, it is still a population pyramid where you see birth rates kind of waning. You don't see people having as many children in stage 3. And a lot of that is because children were surviving at greater rates. And so the need for larger families was going down, because if you had just a few kids, chances were that most of those few kids would make it to adulthood and then therefore take care of you in your old age, for instance. And also, since machines and beasts of burden were introduced in the farm life, you didn't need as many hands on the farm in order to make that food production possible. So the yield, or the amount of food that was produced per farm, didn't necessarily go up. But with the amount of technology that was added to the lifestyle, you saw the need, the agricultural density of a society, that need went down. We didn't need as many farmers to work on the arable land because the technology helped us diversify our lifestyles, diversify our needs that we had in society. So we didn't have to focus so much on food production. You could focus on other pursuits. So stage 3 is an interesting stage to look at because we get to talk about really some lifestyle changes that happened with people during the Industrial Revolution. I do this a lot with my sociology students when we're trying to understand where sociology came from, or how we prove that social facts affect daily life on a micro scale. The macro scale social facts affect our life experiences. So, in stage three, when the Industrial Revolution was taking place, you might remember in your history classes, or if you've taken sociology, that there was a massive shift in way of life from that agrarian or farmer's life to an urbanized lifestyle. So, urbanization is a big thing that you see going on during stage three. There's a transition from living a rural lifestyle to an urbanized lifestyle. And this changed a whole lot of dynamics within the demographic makeup of society. Not only did we have a shift from rural to urban, but we had a shift in gender roles also. If a female did not need to have child after child after child and care for those children in the home anymore, then there was a transition that I think Thomas Malthus would approve of in hindsight, that and he lived, during this time period where women were in the workforce and had fewer children. There was a need to have fewer children because they were now expensive instead of beneficial to farm life. Now it was expensive to feed them, to clothe them, when there were not jobs to go around in factories necessarily for children to occupy. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, you did see a lot of children working in factories, but the legal system kind of caught up with that over time and put barriers in place to employing some people under certain ages. Even today in Arkansas, I know this from my grandson living with us recently, and when he turned 14, we looked into employment laws to see, hey, can he work up the street, at the Dollar General or something? And, there were limitations on the hours of the day that he could work, and the number of hours per week that he was allowed to work by law. So there are laws that are put in place about child labor, and now many females are going into the workforce. So you see a shift in gender roles in this third stage of the demographic transition. And based on a lot of the social climate changes that were happening regarding urbanization and a change in gender roles and the division of labor, you see this birth rate go way down. There wasn't a need for families so much anymore to be huge. There was not that need at all. You see the death rate also continue to go down. It maybe slows down. It's not as sharp a descent as you see in section 2 here, the stage 2 section. And that's part of the reason here is because in stage 3, again, another social problem, public health issues happen. With urbanization, you have all kinds of issues that become prevalent. For instance, proper sanitation and taking care of human waste. Now all of us are living so close together in an urban setting, and we bathe, we pee and poop, and we got to do something with that, right? So if I live on the 7th story of an apartment house and I pee and poop in a bucket and then just open my window and dump it out on the street, which, horror story, sorry, but that's what was happening. If there's any little bug that I have, or just the filth that comes out of our bodies in the waste process, that can spread disease all around. So you see a lot of man-made disease, so to speak. Let me switch my screens for a second and we'll look at the epidemiological transition model. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so see, this only shows 4 stages because we haven't gotten to stage 5 of demographic transition yet, but most people debate whether we've even achieved or reached stage 5 yet. So this only shows 4 stages. It's the stages of the epidemiological transition model. And in stage 3, you see man-made diseases be part of the reason why the death rate levels off a little bit and doesn't continue to drop so sharply, because you've got that urbanization, and rapid urbanization does not allow for the infrastructure. Here's a word that we need to know. Infrastructure is the elements of human society that are provided for the greater good of the greater use and good of the population. For instance, roads and bridges are considered part of the infrastructure. Wastewater facilities and water treatment facilities that make water safe to drink, that's part of infrastructure. You can think of bandwidth and Wi-Fi access, LTE. Nowadays in our modern lifestyle, these are part of the infrastructure, and definitely during our COVID classrooms that we've had to deal with, and this the virtual learning, we're hearing a lot about the digital divide, which highlights the absence of some of that digital infrastructure that is not available for some but available for others. So in stage 3, when urbanization happened rapidly, there weren't always those systems in place where a city, a state, a country could manage properly wastewater disposal, sanitation, or even just design of the city matrix so that garbage could be hauled off easily, or there was someplace close and convenient to have, say, a landfill and that kind of thing. So stage 3 with urbanization and industrialization with factory life, it made work a lot easier on everybody involved. Factory work debatably was terrible compared to farm work. You were stuck inside, maybe with pollution and that kind of thing most of the time, and there were a lot of social problems that came from depression and things like that that came from that change in lifestyle and the confinement of factory life. But urbanization is seen as an issue that helps human societies, helps avoid some of these man-made diseases that we see. But there are a lot of changes that occur in stage 3 of demographic transition. You can read a little bit about it in chapter 2 in our textbook, and then a lot more detail when you read, I think it's chapter 11 and 12 on agriculture and urbanization and industrialization, which I'm incorporating information from all of those chapters into these lessons right now. So when you're reading that or looking up online about these transitions, you will probably read a lot of things like changing gender roles and social position for females in society, and maybe you'll say that that's a good thing that happens. Maybe you'll say it's a bad thing that happens. Maybe industrialization is the origin of all kinds of social problems that you might find if you do a little independent research on this for a reaction paper or something. But stage 3, big stuff is happening in history here. Industrialization and urbanization, and big stuff is happening in population also. The natural increase, which is the space that's not colored in right here. Let me see if I've got one where the space is colored in. No. On some demographic transition models, you'll see this space here shaded in, and this represents the natural increase rate that we learned about in a couple of lectures ago. So this clearly populations are rising, and you see on this demographic transition representation that yes, total population is rising, and it's because even though the birth rate is decreasing, the death rate is decreasing too, or it decreased significantly in stage 2, and then it's sort of leveling off. As you can see, the decrease begins to be more gradual than abrupt as it was. And so you see people living longer. This is the 65-year-old line right there, and you see people living longer. There are more people in the population of this age. And so that, brings another issue too. If you're not fit enough to work and you are not there, and therefore can't add value to the household, you see another issue with elder care and maybe a decline in the way we regard our elders in society and what we think of as their place. Maybe this is where the transition happened, where we say, hey, move over and give younger people, a chance to have that spot in society. So, okay, in another video, we'll go over stage 4 and probably a little bit more about stage 3. And please remember, you need this stuff for project 2 that's coming up at the end of next week. Thanks. See you soon.